I spent just over 3.5 hours pulling this out. It actually went pretty well. There's only 13 bolts that hold this entire thing in. I know the footage wasn't that great because I was doing it at 8 o'clock at night is when I started, so the lighting's gonna be pretty terrible. This thing is stinking huge. Weighs, I think, 380 pounds. The first thing I'm gonna do is try to pull off this output yoke. Here we are again with the illustrated parts list and the part of the manual that I printed off. It's 126 pages, so I only printed off 15 or so that I think I need. So the first thing I'm curious about is you can see the output shaft nut. There's two different part numbers. One is 300 to 350 foot-pounds and one is 500 foot-pounds. It shows part number 36 right there. And you can see right here, number 36 is our nut, 219.37. That is the first one right here, 219.37, which means that nut should be 300 to 350 foot-pounds. Doesn't make a huge difference as far as getting it loose, but getting it tight, I'm concerned about getting it to 500, but I'm only gonna have to get back to the 350. I'm really starting to think I'm gonna replace all 3 of these synchronizers just because I'm already in there and this thing is worth putting, you know, $1,000 into the transmission if I need to, because I got the truck so cheap. It's worth doing the transmission right while I have it out there, not just replace what's obviously bad now, but let's go ahead and replace the other wear components while we're in there. All right, now we know that nut should be 350 foot-pounds, give or take. And this impact should have 1,400 foot-pounds of loosening torque. The battery is 75% charged. Now, I am using an adapter to go from 1/2 inch to 3/4, and this nut has been on there for 13 years. It's probably gonna take a little more than 350 foot-pounds to break it loose. There is a process to lock the transmission up. All you have to do is shift 2 shift collars into place and it can't turn over. You can then put a breaker bar in here and break it loose. Obviously that's gonna be really hard to do now that this is sitting on a jack. Would have been much easier in the vehicle. So hopefully, woo! Look at that. Barely, but it got it. Milwaukee for the win. This is also a lock nut too. That means there's a nylon ring around the perimeter. You see that white line there? That's a little nylon sleeve that will prevent the nut from backing off. You can see the wear on the points from this thing just getting hammered off there. We're gonna replace this. We're definitely buying a new one. Definitely gonna use this impact to put it back on. Pull the yoke off the output shaft here. Pull that strap off. Yeah, that's actually pretty stable. Now yes, I realize this should be all cleaned off before I pull it off. Let's face it, it's already been off there once. So I'm sure there's already a little bit of junk down inside of here. Before I put this back together for the last time, this will all be cleaned off. I'm just trying to get this thing apart so that I can order new parts for it and hopefully get it back in next weekend. And here's a better look of what it looks like down in here. So this is the synchronizer that's bad, first and reverse. And you can see it completely comes apart from this piece here. This piece should be stuck right with it like all these other ones are. So this is reverse. First synchronizer, second, third, fourth, fifth. And the rest of them all look to be in pretty good shape. It's just this one that's causing me fits. Is there a spot to pry this off? I don't feel one. There, that works. Just jiggle on the input shaft. Actually, I can probably pull the whole thing out together. Yep, there we go. Spot over here to get a screwdriver or a pry bar or something. There we go. It's going to be stinking heavy. I'll be able to pull the entire main shaft out of here now and get a good look at it. See if I can get this rope fished around the thing. Ouch. I think we made some progress there. Yep, that was it. Holy cow, that's heavy. Woo! You can hear before I set the cover on it, it's definitely got more of a shimmer to it than I would like to see. That's to be expected though, I guess, if part of the synchronizer came apart and was ground up in there. This right here is the 4th and 5th synchronizer, which goes right here in the very front. It fell off as I was pulling it out of the case. And what we're going to attempt to do here is knock this front bearing off, which will allow us to get the rest of the assembly off. I really should have a bearing splitter, which of course I don't happen to have on hand at the moment. And it's cut. Put this apart and watch the rollers go all over the floor now. There's a cage along with all the little roller bearings that go inside of it. Really, the bearing looks good. No scoring to speak of on these rollers. They all look to be in pretty darn good shape. Should be a bigger concern to me than the particles in the oil. Bearings are in good shape and the gears are in good shape, then it's still okay. You gotta remember the thing does have, what was it, 180,000 miles on it. It's been around the block a couple times. It's gonna have a little bit of junk in the oil. I got a little tiny Dremel. I'm gonna see if I can't delicately cut this away. Sometimes they'll split after you cut them a little bit. Or sometimes that gives you just enough release on the tension to where you can knock them off. There, I'm getting progress. Before I could not move this hub here whatsoever. I can click it back and forth just a smidge now. So we are starting to get somewhere with it. I'm just going to keep hitting one side a little bit, rotating the whole thing around, and keep playing that game. Try and do it as even as possible. If you hit on one side the whole time, it'll get kind of cockeyed and bound up on there, and it'll stop moving. The moment we've all been waiting for. And our bearing is finally off. That was a royal pain in the butt. And yes, I could have waited. I could have got a bearing splitter and done it that way with the press, or with a gear puller, either way. But I didn't want to. I wanted to get it done now. And also, it goes to show that you don't always have to have all the right tools to do a job. I mean, I'm rebuilding a transmission out of a 32,000 pound dump truck in a 2-car garage with really no special tools. I borrowed that big electric impact you saw from a friend. I used an old ATV jack to lower it out of there. With a little bit of persistence, patience, and ingenuity, you can do a lot without having the right tools. This is where we start, I guess, inspecting things a little closer. I'm sure there's going to be some snap rings along the way we have to deal with. This is the fourth and fifth gear hub. And all I'm going to do is pull every single part off. I'm going to roll it around. I'm going to visually inspect it. And if it looks obviously worn, I'm going to mark it down as needing a replacement. And that's all I'm going to do. Just piece by piece, take this whole transmission apart. What do we have here? Snap ring? Yep. We've come to the first snap ring right here. I'll get some snap ring pliers, and that will allow us to take the snap ring and this big washer off, and we'll get the rest of this off of there. And these aren't even the right kind of snap ring pliers, but we're going to see if we can make do. Yeah, it's not really even that strong of a snap ring, surprisingly. There we go. Snap ring and the big washer behind it. And I'll probably start a new pile with the rest of this. I'm not going to stack this up so high to where it falls over. So now this would be, let's see, first, second, I believe this is third gear. I'm just looking inside the bearing. Bearing looks to be okay. There's no obvious visual, teeth missing or anything. If there's a big chunk out of that, obviously we'd have to replace it, but there's really nothing. There's nothing on any of these. Here's the second and third synchro. This one's different than the reverse one. It's got this friction material on both sides of it. And honestly, I don't... See, this is where I don't know, because I'm not a professional transmission rebuilder. I don't know if this is worn out, if it needs to be replaced, if it doesn't. I just feel like I should replace it as long as I'm in here. This one doesn't honestly look horrible. The fourth, fifth one actually does have some visible wear on it, so I think that one's justifiable to replace. But I'm really starting to think, and I know I've said it, but I'm trying to talk myself into it at the same time. I'm really starting to think that while I'm in here, I might as well just go ahead and do all the synchros. If another one of those comes apart, guess what? We're going to be right back in the same boat where it gets stuck in gear. Another snap ring right here. It's at least out of its groove now. So now all I've got to do is spread that snap ring and I can pull on this hub behind it and slide it off with that. In theory anyway. Now that goes right there. This goes on top of that. You know what, I'm going to start a new pile again with this stuff here. Oh, there we go. Where the heck does this little ball bearing go? There's a little divot right here. Does it sit inside that little divot there? Oh my goodness. What the heck does that do? Whew. I'm going to come back and show you that here in a minute. I honestly don't have a clue what the heck that does. Let's keep going. Somehow this shaft seems lighter, but more awkward, if that's even possible. So far, all of these little needle bearings have looked totally fine inside all the different gears. What the heck does this little ball do? It sits on top of that hole there. I'll have to go look at my parts breakdown, but I have no clue. If one of you guys know, let me know what that does, just in case I can't figure it out for my parts breakdown. We've got one more snap ring to go. We'll get first gear off, we'll get our synchro off, and we will have the main shaft completely stripped, minus reverse, but there's absolutely no point to take that off unless we wanted to see the needle bearings underneath of it. But I'm going to assume, since all these other needle bearings have looked fine, that those are fine. And to me, it's not worth that, ripping that bearing off and going through the hassle of that, because I can't imagine that those bearings are bad when the rest have been totally fine, and I'm not seeing any physical damage in this transmission other than the one synchronizer being taken apart. It'll be interesting to see when we get the new one what it's actually supposed to look like, because it's obviously different than the rest of them. So as you can see, these are round, and this snap ring has nice flat ends on it. They make snap ring pliers that just have nice flat ends for these snap rings. Obviously, I do not have them, and guess what I just found? Another one of those mystery balls. What the heck oh! We just discovered it. See the mystery ball? You'll notice in the spacer, right there, it's got a little notch cut out. It keys this to where it can't rotate on the shaft. It keeps this from rotating against the gear. Interesting. Well, let's see if we can get this pulled off of here. I'm going to go ahead and invest in some flat snap ring pliers before I go and put this back together. It would definitely make it easier. And they're fairly inexpensive. It's honestly something I should have anyway for as much of this kind of stuff as I seem to get myself into. Alright, let's see if I can pull this off of here. I know you can't see much because you're very much right up and personal with it. Come on. Whoa! So now I've got first gear in my hands. I'm going to set that down right here. And I'm hoping when that synchro came apart that I did not lose that other little tiny mystery ball bearing. Kind of wondering why I set it back on the shaft. Nope, it's still there. Right there. I honestly don't know why I set that dumb thing back on the shaft where I could lose it. And there we go. We're all the way down to reverse. Here is our problem synchro. And of course, my battery light's flashing, guys. Well, that's convenient because this is a great stopping point. I'm gonna go inside, get online, order some new parts for this project. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so. I'd greatly appreciate it. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.